The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped beneath Claire Whitmore's apartment door like a whispered secret. She almost stepped on it, rushing to catch the 7:15 bus, her worn sneakers squeaking against the hallway's chipped linoleum. The building superintendent never delivered mail personally. Nobody did. Not in this neighborhood where keeping to yourself was an unspoken survival rule. Claire picked up the cream-colored envelope, noting immediately that it felt expensive. Heavy paper stock. The kind you saw in wedding invitations or sympathy cards from people who had money to spend on grief. Her name was written in elegant calligraphy across the front. Just her name. No address, no return sender. She tucked it into her coat pocket and hurried outside, where November wind sliced through Chicago's streets like broken glass. The bus was already pulling away from the stop. Claire watched its red taillights disappear around the corner, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. That was the third time this week. Her supervisor at the library had stopped accepting excuses. Walking would take 45 minutes. Claire pulled her thin jacket tighter and started moving, her fingers finding the envelope in her pocket. Something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, but weighted with importance she couldn't name. The public library where Claire worked sat wedged between a laundromat and a convenience store with bars on the windows. It wasn't the grand downtown branch with marble columns and reading rooms that smelled like old books and possibility. This was the kind of library that served people who needed free internet access, a warm place to sit, and an escape from lives that had gone sideways. Claire pushed through the doors at 8:03, 3 minutes late. Mrs. Patterson, the head librarian, glanced up from her desk with disapproval, etched into every line of her face. Traffic, Claire lied, unwinding her scarf. Mrs. Patterson sniffed. The books won't shelve themselves. Claire spent the next 3 hours in the familiar rhythm of her job. Scan the return. Check for damage. Sort by category. Shelve in numerical order. Her hands moved automatically, leaving her mind free to wander to places she usually kept locked away. Today, those places led back 22 years, to a kitchen that smelled like burnt toast and her mother's tears. She'd been 6 years old when her parents divorced, young enough that most memories had faded to impressions rather than clear images. But she remembered her twin sister, Natalie. They'd been inseparable until the day their father loaded his Mercedes with suitcases and Natalie's favorite stuffed rabbit. Claire had stood at the window watching them drive away, not understanding why she had to stay behind. Her mother never explained it properly, just said that sometimes families broke in ways that couldn't be fixed, and that Daddy wanted Natalie, and they had to respect his choice. Claire learned later that custody battles were ugly, expensive things. Her mother, a waitress with 2 jobs and mounting debt, couldn't afford to fight a corporate lawyer with connections. Claire was chosen by default. The daughter nobody particularly wanted. She'd tried to reach out to Natalie over the years. Letters sent to her father's address came back unopened. Phone calls went unanswered. Social media searches turned up nothing, probably because Natalie had privacy settings only wealth could maintain. Eventually, Claire stopped trying. You could only reach for someone so many times before accepting they didn't want to be found. At lunch, Claire sat in the break room with a sandwich she'd made 3 days ago and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single card, thick and cream-colored like the envelope itself. The text was brief. Natalie Whitmore. Beloved daughter. Cherished fiancée. Service to be held November 12th, 2025, 2:20 p.m. St. Catherine's Cathedral, 1840, North Dearborn Street. Claire read it 3 times before the words properly registered. Natalie. Dead. The funeral was tomorrow. Her hands started shaking. The sandwich fell to the floor, landing face down on linoleum that hadn't been properly cleaned in weeks. Claire didn't pick it up. She stared at the card, at her sister's name printed in elegant font, and felt nothing. Then she felt everything. 22 years of anger, grief, and wondering crashed over her like a wave. Her sister was dead. Her twin, the other half of her that had been severed before she was old enough to understand what losing meant. And Claire had learned about it from an anonymous card slipped under her door. Who sent this? Not their father, certainly. He'd made it clear decades ago that Claire didn't exist in his world. Maybe Natalie had left instructions with someone. Maybe she'd kept track of Claire over the years the same way Claire had tried to keep track of her. Maybe in her final moments, Natalie had thought about the sister she left behind. Or maybe this was a mistake. Wrong Claire Whitmore. Wrong address. Wrong life. But the card sat in her trembling hands, proof that someone knew where to find her. Someone thought she should know. Claire spent the rest of her shift in a fog, checking out books without seeing titles, answering patron questions without hearing words. When 5 o'clock finally arrived, she walked home through streets already dark with early winter sunset. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Small, cold, alone. She sat on her second-hand couch and Googled St. Catherine's Cathedral. The images that appeared showed a Gothic masterpiece in the heart of Chicago's Gold Coast, all soaring spires and stained glass windows. The kind of place where funerals probably cost more than Claire made in 6 months. The kind of place that screamed wealth, power, privilege, everything her sister had grown up with, everything Claire had been denied. She should feel angry. Part of her did. But mostly she felt hollow, carved out by decades of absence that had just become permanent. That night, Claire dreamed of Halloween when she and Natalie were 6. Their mother had sewn matching princess costumes, spending money they didn't have on pink fabric and plastic tiaras. The girls had held hands while trick-or-treating, their matching faces lit with identical smiles. In the dream, they never let go. In the dream, the Mercedes never came. She woke at 4 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. Morning found her staring at her closet, trying to find something appropriate for a funeral she hadn't been invited to. Everything she owned looked cheap, worn, wrong. Finally, she settled on black pants and a dark gray sweater, both from the clearance rack at Target. They would have to be enough. The question wasn't what to wear. The question was whether to go at all. 22 years of silence said stay home, but something deeper, some twin sense that had never fully died, pulled her toward that cathedral. Maybe she needed to see Natalie one last time. Maybe she needed closure on a relationship that ended before it properly began. Maybe she just needed to know who her sister had become, even if that knowledge came too late to matter. At noon, Claire called in sick to work. At 1:15, she boarded the bus heading downtown. And at 1:55 p.m. on November 12, 2025, Claire Whitmore stood outside St. Catherine's Cathedral, watching expensive cars arrive and elegant people in designer black file through doors she'd never been invited to enter. Her hands shook as she climbed the stone steps. This was a mistake. She didn't belong here, but her feet kept moving forward, carrying her toward answers she wasn't sure she wanted. The cathedral's interior stole Claire's breath. Vaulted ceilings soared 3 stories high, supported by columns carved from marble that looked older than the city itself. Stained glass windows filtered afternoon light into pools of crimson and sapphire across polished floors. The space felt sacred and untouchable, built for people who believed their wealth could buy them closer proximity to God. Claire slipped through the heavy oak doors and immediately felt every eye turn toward her, not all at once. It happened in waves. The first row of mourners glanced back, their conversations dying mid-sentence. Then the second row, then the third. Whispers rippled through the assembled crowd like wind through wheat fields, gathering strength as they spread. She recognized the look on their faces. Shock, fear. Something that bordered on superstition, as if they'd seen a ghost rise from its grave and walk among the living. Claire kept moving forward because stopping would mean acknowledging she didn't belong. Her worn Target clothes felt like a costume in this sea of designer black. Women wore dresses that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Men's suits were tailored so perfectly they looked painted on. Even the grief here seemed expensive, carefully curated for public consumption. The casket sat at the front of the cathedral, surrounded by flowers that must have required multiple florists and a substantial budget. White roses, lilies, orchids, arranged in cascading displays that looked like they belonged in a palace. Claire's steps slowed as she approached. She knew the moment she saw the face. Knew with absolute certainty that would break something inside her she'd spent 22 years trying to protect. The woman in the casket looked like Claire's reflection. Same bone structure, same slope of nose, same curve of mouth. But Natalie's features held a softness Claire had never possessed, even in sleep. Her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves. Her makeup made her look peaceful, serene, like a princess from a storybook waiting to wake. Claire's hand found the edge of the casket without conscious thought. The polished wood felt cold under her fingertips. This was real. Natalie was gone. The sister who'd been both stranger and soulmate was lying here, preserved in death, unreachable in every way that mattered. Dear God. The voice came from somewhere behind Claire. A woman's voice, sharp with disbelief. More whispers followed, louder now, urgent. Claire heard fragments. It's her. How is that possible? She's supposed to be... Look at her face. Identical. Claire turned slowly. The congregation stared back at her with expressions ranging from confusion to outright terror. Several people had risen from their pews. A few backed toward the exits. One elderly woman clutched a rosary so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Then the crowd parted. A man walked down the center aisle with the kind of presence that made everyone step aside without being asked. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that screamed custom tailoring and old money. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, eyes the color of honey mixed with amber. Currently locked on Claire with an intensity that made her want to run. But it was the grief radiating from him that froze her in place. Raw, devastating grief that he wore like armor, turning it into something dangerous. He stopped 3 feet away from Claire, close enough that she could see gold flecks in those honey-dark eyes, close enough to see the muscle ticking in his jaw, close enough to realize this man was barely holding himself together. Who are you? His voice was quiet, controlled, which made it more terrifying than shouting. This was a man who didn't need volume to command attention. Claire's mouth went dry. I'm Claire. Claire Whitmore. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or disbelief. That's not possible. It's the truth. Natalie never mentioned a sister. His gaze raked over her, cataloging every detail. Certainly not a twin. We were separated when we were 6. After our parents divorced. Claire forced the words out past the tightness in her throat. I haven't seen her in 22 years. The man's eyes narrowed. Convenient story. Excuse me? Showing up at her funeral, claiming to be her sister. He stepped closer, invading her space with deliberate intention. What do you want? Money? Attention? Some twisted form of grief tourism? Anger spiked through Claire's shock. I want to mourn my sister. That's all. Your sister. He repeated the words like they tasted bitter. You expect me to believe Natalie had a twin she never spoke about, never contacted, never even mentioned in passing during 4 years together. I expect you to believe the truth, but clearly that's asking too much. Claire's hands clenched into fists. I don't know who you are or why you're interrogating me, but I have every right to be here. You have no rights here. The man's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. This is my cathedral. My security. He stopped. The grief cracked through his controlled exterior for just a moment. Raw and bleeding. My fiancée. The word hit Claire like a physical blow. Fiancée. Natalie had been engaged to this man. This dangerous, grieving stranger who looked at Claire like she was either a miracle or a threat. And he couldn't decide which frightened him more. I'm sorry for your loss, Claire said, and meant it despite his hostility. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I just wanted to say goodbye. Gabriel. A new voice interrupted them. An older man approached, his silver hair and military bearing suggesting years of experience with difficult situations. He placed a hand on the younger man's shoulder. People are watching. Gabriel. So that was his name. Claire filed the information away, along with everything else she'd learned in the last 5 minutes. Wealthy. Powerful. Loved Natalie enough that her death had carved him hollow. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He looked at Claire one more time, and she saw something shift in his expression. Calculation replacing raw emotion. Whatever he saw in her face, it made him pause. Franco, he said to the older man without breaking eye contact with Claire. Take her to the rectory. Watch her. I'm not going anywhere with... Claire started. You want to stay for the service? Gabriel cut her off. Fine. But you'll do it somewhere private, where your presence doesn't cause a panic. Those are your options. Take them or leave. It wasn't a request. Claire looked past him at the cathedral full of staring faces, at the guards she now noticed positioned at every exit, at the power dynamics she'd stumbled into without understanding the rules. Then she looked down at the casket, at Natalie's peaceful face. "Fine," Claire heard herself say. "I'll go to the rectory." Franco gestured for her to follow. As Claire turned to leave, she heard a small sound. A whimper, almost. She glanced back and saw a little girl peering around Gabriel's legs. The child couldn't have been more than 5, with curly brown hair and enormous honey-colored eyes that mirrored the man's. The girl stared at Claire with an expression of wonder and confusion. Her small hand reached out, fingers stretching toward Claire like she was trying to touch something fragile that might disappear. "Tia Nat?" The whisper was barely audible. Claire's heart cracked. The girl thought she was Natalie. Of course she did. They were identical. Gabriel scooped the child into his arms immediately, turning her face away from Claire. "No, Lily, that's not her." But Lily twisted in his grip, still staring at Claire with desperate hope. "But she looks. She's not Natalie." Gabriel's voice was firm but gentle. "I promise you, sweetheart. She's not." Franco touched Claire's elbow. "Miss, please." Claire let herself be guided away, but she looked back once more. Gabriel stood holding the little girl, his face a mask of controlled devastation. Lily had buried her face against his shoulder, small body shaking with what might have been sobs, and Claire realized with sudden, terrible clarity that she'd just walked into something far more complicated than a funeral. This wasn't just about saying goodbye to a sister she'd lost decades ago. This was about a family shattered by death, a powerful man barely holding together, and a child who'd just mistaken Claire for someone she desperately wanted back. The rectory door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a cell door locking. The rectory was smaller than Claire expected, furnished with simple wooden chairs and a desk that looked like it predated electricity. A single window overlooked the cathedral gardens, where security personnel moved with military precision through manicured hedges. Franco positioned himself by the door, arms crossed, watching Claire like she might bolt at any moment. "Sit," he said, not unkindly, but not giving her a choice either. Claire sat in one of the wooden chairs, her hands folded in her lap. Through the walls, she could hear the muffled sounds of the funeral service beginning, an organ playing something somber, a voice speaking words she couldn't quite make out. "How long have you known Gabriel?" Claire asked, more to break the oppressive silence than because she expected an answer. Franco's expression didn't change. "Long enough. That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting, miss." He shifted his weight, and Claire noticed the way his jacket fell. A gun. Concealed but present. "Mr. Donovan will want to speak with you after the service." Claire's stomach tightened. "About what?" "That's between you and him." 30 minutes crawled by. Claire counted ceiling tiles, studied the grain of the wooden desk, listened to her own breathing. The funeral service ended, marked by the organ's final notes and the sound of many feet shuffling through the cathedral. Still, Franco didn't move from his post. Finally, the door opened. Gabriel entered, and the small room suddenly felt half its size. He'd removed his suit jacket, revealing a white dress shirt that did nothing to soften the hardness radiating from him. His tie was loosened, the only visible sign of the emotional toll the service had taken. Behind him, the little girl from earlier peeked into the room. Lily. She clutched a worn, stuffed rabbit, her honey-colored eyes fixed on Claire with desperate curiosity. "Franco, wait outside," Gabriel said. "Watch the door." Franco hesitated. "Sir, I don't think... I'll be fine." Gabriel's tone left no room for argument. 5 minutes. After Franco left, Gabriel moved to the desk and leaned against it, putting distance between himself and Claire, while maintaining a position of power. Lily stayed near the door, partially hidden, but watching everything. "I need you to prove who you are," Gabriel said without preamble. Claire's jaw tightened. "How exactly am I supposed to do that?" "Identification, for starters." She pulled her wallet from her pocket, extracting her driver's license and library card. Both showed her name. Claire Whitmore. Gabriel studied them with the intensity of someone looking for forgeries. "These could be faked," he said finally. They're not. Your address is in a neighborhood Natalie would never have visited. He flipped the license over, checking the back for something Claire couldn't identify. Convenient that you live somewhere she'd have no reason to go. Convenient? Claire stood, anger overriding caution. You think I chose to grow up poor? You think I wanted to spend 22 years wondering where my sister was while she lived in whatever gold-plated tower you two shared? Something flickered in Gabriel's eyes. Lower your voice. Why? Afraid someone might hear the truth? Claire took a step toward him. I didn't ask to be separated from my twin. I didn't ask for my father to choose her and leave me behind. And I certainly didn't ask to find out she died from an anonymous card shoved under my door. Gabriel went very still. What card? The funeral announcement. Someone sent it to me yesterday morning. Claire pulled the cream-colored card from her pocket and threw it on the desk. That's how I found out Natalie was dead. That's how I knew where to come. He picked up the card, examining it with the same scrutiny he'd given her license. His jaw tightened. This was printed on cathedral stationery. I didn't authorize any announcements to be sent out beyond our immediate circle. Then who sent it? That's what I intend to find out. Gabriel set the card down carefully, his mind clearly working through possibilities. But it doesn't prove you're who you say you are. It proves someone wanted you here. Look at me, Claire said, her voice dropping to something raw. Really look. You loved Natalie for 4 years. You think you wouldn't recognize her face? Gabriel's gaze swept over her, and Claire saw the moment it happened. The moment he stopped seeing a potential threat and started seeing the truth. His eyes cataloged the similarities and differences, the blonde hair they shared, the identical bone structure, but also the subtle distinctions. Claire's hair was less styled, pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of professionally maintained waves. Her skin showed more freckles from hours walking in the sun because she couldn't afford car insurance. Her hands were rougher, nails unpainted, bearing the marks of someone who worked with books and cleaning supplies instead of spa appointments. You have freckles, Gabriel said quietly. Natalie didn't. Not like that. She probably got treatments to remove them. Laser therapy or whatever people with money use. Claire crossed her arms. We're identical twins. The DNA doesn't lie, even if the appearance gets polished. Your posture is different, the way you stand. She grew up with etiquette lessons and country clubs. I grew up with public schools and work-study programs. Claire met his eyes. We're the same person, raised in different worlds. That's what separated twins become. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its hard edge. Natalie tried to find someone 3 years ago. She hired private investigators, spent months searching. She never told me details, just said she was looking for family. Claire's breath caught. She tried to find me? The investigators came back empty. Said the trail went cold. He paused. You'd moved cities, changed jobs. The woman they were looking for didn't exist anymore at the addresses they had. The words hit Claire like a fist. 3 years ago, she'd been in Milwaukee, trying to escape an ex-boyfriend who'd become dangerous. She'd changed her name temporarily, lived off the grid for months before finally settling back in Chicago under her real identity. Natalie had been looking for her, had tried to reach out, and Claire had been unreachable, hiding from demons that had nothing to do with her sister. I didn't know, Claire whispered. I was dealing with... She stopped. Gabriel didn't need her life story. I didn't know she was looking. She kept one photograph. Gabriel pulled his phone from his pocket, swiped through images, then turned the screen toward Claire. This. She had it hidden in her jewelry box. The photo showed 2 little girls dressed in matching princess costumes. Halloween, 22 years ago. The last time Claire and Natalie had been together. Their mother had taken the picture on a disposable camera, capturing them mid-laugh, holding hands, completely unaware that within a week everything would shatter. Claire's eyes burned. I thought I was the only one who kept a copy. She looked at it sometimes, when she thought I wasn't watching. Gabriel's voice was rough. She'd touch the glass like she could reach through and bring that little girl back. The grief in his tone was so raw that Claire felt it in her own chest. This man had loved her sister, truly loved her, in a way that transcended the wealth and power radiating from him. He'd lost his fiancée, his future, And now he was standing in a rectory trying to figure out if the ghost wearing her face was real. "I'm sorry," Claire said. "For your loss. For Natalie. For all of it." Gabriel pocketed his phone. "How did she die?" Claire asked. His expression went cold again. "That's not your concern. She was my sister, whom you didn't know, didn't see for 2 decades. Coming here doesn't give you rights to information that could—" He stopped himself. "Could what?" Claire pressed. "Tia Nat?" The small voice from the doorway interrupted them. Lily had moved closer, no longer hiding. She clutched her stuffed rabbit with white-knuckled intensity, her eyes fixed on Claire with heartbreaking hope. Gabriel moved immediately, positioning himself between his niece and Claire. "Lily, sweetheart, I told you. This isn't Natalie. But she looks like her." Lily's voice was tiny, trembling. "She has the same face, the same hair." Claire's chest constricted. She knelt down slowly, bringing herself to the child's eye level, despite Gabriel's warning posture. "Hi, Lily. My name is Claire. I'm Natalie's sister, her twin sister." "What's a twin?" Lily asked. "It means we were born at the same time. From the same mama." Claire kept her voice gentle. "That's why we look alike. But we're different people. I promise I'm not trying to pretend to be her." Lily's lower lip trembled. "Natalie used to read me stories. I bet she was really good at that. She did all the voices, made me laugh." A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. "She promised she'd always be here. But she lied. She left." Gabriel picked up Lily, pulling her against his chest. "She didn't want to leave, baby. Sometimes bad things happen that we can't control." But Lily twisted in his arms, reaching toward Claire. "Will you read me stories, like Tia Nat did?" "Lily, no." Gabriel's voice was firm. "Claire isn't staying." "Why not?" The little girl's voice rose to something desperate. "She looks like Tia Nat. She has the same face. Please, Uncle Gabriel. Please let her stay." Claire watched Gabriel's careful control crack. He was barely holding himself together, trying to process his own grief while protecting a traumatized 5-year-old who'd just lost her mother figure. And now Claire had appeared, looking like the woman they'd buried, stirring up hope that was only going to cause more pain. "I should go," Claire said quietly. "This isn't—" "Wait." Gabriel's voice stopped her. He looked at Claire with something between desperation and calculation. "I need to verify your identity properly. DNA test? Background check? The full investigation. Fine. And I need to understand why someone sent you that announcement. Why they wanted you at this funeral specifically." His eyes narrowed. "Which means you need to stay where I can protect you." Claire's blood went cold. "Protect me from what?" "Natalie was murdered," Gabriel said flatly. "Single shot from a sniper rifle. Professional hit. And if someone's drawing attention to her twin sister showing up at the funeral, that means you're either a pawn or a target. Either way, you're not walking out of here unguarded." The word murdered hung in the air between them like shattered glass. Claire felt the room tilt slightly, her vision narrowing to Gabriel's face and the terrible certainty in his eyes. "You're lying," she heard herself say. "I wish I were." Gabriel's voice was flat, emotionless, the kind of tone that came from repeating unbearable truths until they lost their power to wound. 3 days ago, outside her favorite coffee shop, 1 shot, clean kill. The police are calling it random violence, but I know better. Claire's legs went weak. She sat down hard in the wooden chair, her hands gripping the armrests for stability. "Who would—" "That's what I'm working to find out." Gabriel moved away from the desk, pacing the small room like a caged predator. "Which brings me back to you. Someone wanted you at this funeral. Someone who knew about your existence when even I didn't. That's not coincidence. You think I had something to do with—" Claire stood, anger overriding shock. "I didn't even know she was alive until yesterday. How could I possibly—" "I don't think you killed her," Gabriel cut her off. "But someone might be using you, drawing you into a situation you don't understand for reasons that serve their purpose, not yours." Franco knocked once and opened the door without waiting for permission. "Sir, the cars are ready. We need to move before—" He stopped, noticing the tension in the room. "Is everything all right?" "Fine." Gabriel's jaw was tight. "Get a DNA kit from the medical team." I want confirmation on Miss Whitmore's identity within 48 hours. Already arranged. Doctor, Montgomery is waiting in the East Wing. Gabriel turned back to Claire. You're coming with us. To my home. You'll stay there under protection until we sort this out. I'm not going anywhere with you. Claire crossed her arms. I have a job, an apartment, a life that doesn't involve being a prisoner in whatever mansion you're running. Your life? Gabriel's voice was soft but deadly. The one in that apartment building with broken locks and no security cameras, where anyone could walk in and finish what they started with Natalie. The words hit harder than Claire wanted to admit. She'd never thought about safety before. Never needed to. But if Natalie had been murdered, if someone knew about Claire's existence, if that funeral announcement was bait in a trap she didn't see coming, I'll pay you, Gabriel continued, sensing her hesitation. $100,000. 2 weeks. You stay at my estate, help me figure out who sent that announcement, and once the DNA confirms your identity, you're free to go. Claire's mind reeled. 100,000. That was 2 years of her salary. That was every bill paid, every debt cleared, every night terror about eviction notices gone. I don't want your money, she said, but the words lacked conviction. Everyone wants money. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending you're different. Gabriel pulled his phone from his pocket, typed something quickly. I just transferred $5,000 to cover immediate expenses. Consider it a down payment. You don't even have my bank information. I have your driver's license. Getting account numbers takes 30 seconds when you know the right people. He pocketed the phone. The rest comes when you agree to my terms. Claire wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him where he could shove his money and his assumptions. But $100,000. That was freedom from the edge of disaster she'd been balancing on for years. What exactly would I be doing for 2 weeks? She asked carefully. Staying alive. Letting my security team protect you. Answering questions about your past that might connect to Natalie's present. Gabriel paused. And helping Lily adjust to a world where the woman who raised her is gone. That last part broke through Claire's defenses. She looked at the little girl still clutching her stuffed rabbit. Honey-colored eyes watching the adults with a 5-year-old's imperfect understanding of death and danger. Lily isn't my responsibility, Claire said, but without heat. No, she's mine. Gabriel's expression softened when he looked at his niece. My brother died 2 years ago. Car accident. Left Lily without parents. Natalie stepped in. Became the mother figure she needed. Now Natalie's gone, and Lily hasn't spoken more than 10 words since we found the body. She spoke to me. At the funeral. Exactly. Gabriel met her eyes. You look like the woman she lost. Maybe that's enough to help her process this grief. Maybe it's cruel to use that resemblance. But I'm desperate, and desperation makes monsters of good men. Claire heard the truth beneath his words. This powerful, dangerous man who commanded resources and respect was helpless in the face of a child's trauma. He'd do anything, sacrifice anything, even his own moral comfort, to help Lily heal. 2 weeks, Claire heard herself say. I get full access to the investigation. You don't hide information from me. And if I feel unsafe or uncomfortable, I leave. Those are my terms. Gabriel considered for 3 long seconds. Agreed. With one addition. You don't leave the estate grounds without security detail. Not until we know who we're dealing with. Fine. They shook hands. His grip was firm, warm, and reminded Claire that she'd just made a deal with someone who probably broke laws before breakfast. But the money. God, the money would change everything. Uncle Gabriel? Lily's small voice interrupted them. Is Claire coming home with us? Gabriel knelt down to his niece's level. Yes, sweetheart. For a little while. Is that okay with you? Lily nodded enthusiastically. Can she sleep in the room next to mine? Like Tia Nat did? Something painful flashed across Gabriel's face. We'll see. Right now, we need to get you and Claire somewhere safe. The drive to Gabriel's estate took 40 minutes through Chicago's wealthiest neighborhoods. Claire sat in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows and leather seats that probably cost more than her entire furniture collection. Franco drove. Gabriel sat in the passenger seat, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian to someone who sounded stressed. Lily sat beside Claire, the stuffed rabbit in her lap. That's Mr. Whiskers, the little girl said quietly. Tia Nat gave him to me when Daddy died. She said he'd keep me safe when I was scared. Claire's throat tightened. That was really nice of her. She was the best. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you think she's in heaven? Uncle Gabriel says yes, but I don't know what heaven looks like. I think, Claire said carefully, that wherever she is, she's watching over you, making sure you're okay. Then why did she leave? The question held the kind of pain only children could express so plainly. If she loved me, why did she go away? Claire didn't have an answer. She'd been asking herself similar questions for 22 years. Why did Natalie never reach out? Why did their father choose one daughter and abandon the other? Why did love come with conditions and expiration dates? Sometimes, Claire said finally, people leave because they don't have a choice, not because they don't love us. Your Tia Nat loved you so much, Lily. That doesn't change just because she's not here anymore. Lily leaned against Claire's shoulder, a gesture of trust that felt both precious and terrifying. Claire wasn't equipped for this, wasn't prepared to be a stand-in for a dead woman or a comfort to a grieving child. But Lily's small body relaxed against her, and Claire found her arm wrapping around the girl instinctively. Gabriel glanced back through the rearview mirror. Something unreadable crossed his face when he saw them together. The estate appeared beyond iron gates that opened automatically. The mansion looked like something from a period drama. Stone facade, tall windows, surrounded by grounds that could have held 3 city blocks. Security cameras tracked their approach. Men in dark suits patrolled the perimeter with military precision. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Welcome to your prison, Gabriel said without irony as the SUV stopped in front of the main entrance. For the next 2 weeks, this is the safest place in Chicago. Possibly the only safe place. Claire stepped out of the vehicle, her Target clothes and worn sneakers completely out of place against the backdrop of wealth and power. A woman in her 50s waited at the entrance, her expression professionally neutral. Mrs. Chen, this is Claire Whitmore, Gabriel said. Natalie's twin sister. She'll be staying in the blue guest suite. Make sure she has everything she needs. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened fractionally before smoothing back to neutrality. Of course, Mr. Donovan. Should I prepare dinner for 3? 4. Lily will eat with us tonight. Gabriel lifted his niece into his arms. And Mrs. Chen? No one discusses Miss Whitmore's presence here. Not staff, not security, not anyone. Understood? Perfectly, sir. As they entered the mansion, Claire caught sight of her reflection in a hallway mirror. For a moment, she could have sworn she saw Natalie staring back. Same face, same hair, but different eyes. Eyes that had seen struggle instead of luxury. Eyes that didn't belong in marble hallways and crystal chandeliers. She'd agreed to 2 weeks, $100,000, protection and answers about her sister's murder. What she didn't know was that by walking through these doors, she'd stepped into a war she couldn't win, and a family she'd never be able to leave. Claire's first morning at the Donovan estate began with the sound of small feet running down marble hallways at 6:47 a.m. She woke in a bed larger than her entire apartment bedroom, surrounded by luxury that felt like an expensive museum exhibit. Egyptian cotton sheets, mahogany furniture that looked hand-carved, a bathroom with gold fixtures and heated floors that probably cost more than her yearly rent. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, she watched security personnel conduct their morning patrol. Men in dark suits with earpieces, moving through meticulously maintained gardens with the precision of soldiers. This wasn't protection. This was a military operation disguised as domestic service. The running footsteps stopped outside her door. A soft knock followed. Claire, are you awake? Lily's voice was tentative, hopeful. Claire wrapped herself in the silk robe hanging in the walk-in closet and opened the door. Lily stood in the hallway wearing pink pajamas decorated with unicorns, her curly hair tangled from sleep. She clutched Mr. Whiskers against her chest like armor. Good morning, sweetheart. You're up early. I couldn't sleep anymore. Lily's honey-colored eyes were wide with excitement and something that looked like fear. Uncle Gabriel says you're staying for 2 whole weeks. Is that true? That's the plan. Will you have breakfast with me? Mrs. Chen makes really good pancakes, but she won't let me put chocolate chips in them. She says it's not proper. Lily's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Tia Nat always let me put chocolate chips in everything. Claire's chest tightened. I'd love to have breakfast with you. And maybe we can convince Mrs. Chen about those chocolate chips. Lily's entire face lit up. She grabbed Claire's hand with surprising strength and pulled her toward the stairs. Come on. Uncle Gabriel is already in the dining room. He gets up really early to talk to scary people on the phone. The dining room could have seated 20 people comfortably. A crystal chandelier hung over a mahogany table, polished to mirror brightness. Gabriel sat at the head, dressed in a perfectly pressed shirt and tie despite the early hour. His phone was pressed to his ear, and he was speaking rapid Italian to someone who sounded agitated. He looked up as Claire and Lily entered. Something shifted in his expression, softening slightly at the sight of his niece's obvious happiness. I have to go, he said into the phone. We'll continue this later. He ended the call and set the device aside. Good morning, ladies. Did you sleep well? Claire's going to ask Mrs. Chen about chocolate chips, Lily announced, climbing into her chair with the help of a booster seat that looked custom-made. Gabriel's eyebrows rose. Chocolate chips? For pancakes. It was apparently a tradition with Natalie. Claire sat across from Lily, trying not to feel overwhelmed by the formal place setting. More silverware than she'd ever used in a single meal. Gabriel's voice was carefully neutral. Natalie was indulgent with Lily's breakfast preferences. Mrs. Chen appeared as if summoned, carrying a silver coffee service. Good morning, Miss Whitmore. How would you prefer your coffee? Just black, please. Claire accepted the delicate porcelain cup, noting that it probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. And Mrs. Chen? Lily mentioned chocolate chips for her pancakes. The housekeeper's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm afraid that's not part of the approved breakfast menu, miss. Approved by whom? Claire asked. Gabriel set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. By me. Lily's diet is carefully monitored by a nutritionist. Too much sugar affects her behavior and sleep patterns. Claire looked at Lily, who had deflated like a punctured balloon. The little girl stared at her plate, shoulders slumped in defeat. This wasn't about nutrition. This was about control. About a grieving man trying to manage his world by controlling every detail he could reach. Maybe just a few? Claire suggested gently. As a special occasion? There are no special occasions when it comes to a child's health. Gabriel replied. His tone was final, leaving no room for argument. But Claire saw Lily's face, saw the resignation of a 5-year-old who'd learned not to ask for things that brought joy. It reminded her of her own childhood, of learning that wanting things was dangerous because disappointment was inevitable. Of course, Claire said carefully. Health is important. Gabriel nodded, satisfied. He returned to his phone, scrolling through messages with the focused intensity of someone managing multiple crises. The conversation was over. Decision made. Case closed. Lily ate her plain pancakes in silence. After breakfast, Gabriel disappeared into his office for what Mrs. Chen described as business calls that shouldn't be interrupted. Lily tugged on Claire's hand, leading her through the mansion like a tour guide eager to share secrets. This is the library, Lily said, pushing open heavy oak doors. It has a ladder that slides. Tia Nat used to read me stories here every afternoon. The library was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes. Rolling ladders provided access to upper shelves. Comfortable reading chairs positioned near tall windows with views of the gardens. It felt like a sanctuary, separate from the cold formality of the rest of the house. Claire walked the perimeter, reading spine titles, classic literature, historical biographies, business texts, legal references, everything organized with obsessive precision. What kind of stories did Natalie read to you? Claire asked. Princess stories mostly, but also ones about brave girls who saved people. Lily climbed into one of the reading chairs, Mr. Whiskers in her lap. She did all the voices, made the dragon sound scary and the prince sound silly. That sounds wonderful. She promised she'd teach me to read the big books myself when I got older. Lily's voice grew quiet. But now she can't. Claire sat in the chair beside her. Learning to read is still important, even without Natalie. She'd want you to keep learning. Uncle Gabriel says I'll start school next year. Real school, not just tutors. Lily's eyes brightened slightly. Will I make friends there? I bet you will. You're smart and kind. Kids will like you. What if they ask about my mommy and daddy? The question came out small, vulnerable. What do I tell them? Claire's chest tightened. This little girl had lost both parents and her primary caregiver before age 6. She was navigating grief that most adults couldn't handle. And she was doing it with the resilience that children somehow manage to find. You tell them the truth, that your parents loved you very much, but they're in heaven now. That your Uncle Gabriel takes care of you, that you're safe and loved. Claire paused. And if anyone is mean about it, you tell a teacher. People who love you will protect you. Lily nodded solemnly, processing this advice with the seriousness of someone older than her years. They spent the morning in the library. Claire read picture books in different voices, making Lily giggle at her attempts at dragon sounds. It felt natural, comfortable. For brief moments, Claire forgot about the armed guards outside, and the man in the office conducting whatever dangerous business required such security. At lunch, Gabriel joined them again. He seemed distracted, tension radiating from him like heat from a flame. Is everything all right? Claire asked. Fine. Gabriel's jaw was tight. Just business complications. What kind of business are you in exactly? Claire had been wondering since the funeral. The wealth, the security, the way people at the cathedral had looked at him with fear and respect. Gabriel's eyes sharpened. Import and export. International shipping. It wasn't the whole truth. Claire could tell by the way he delivered the answer, too smooth and practiced. But pushing would only make him more suspicious of her motives. After lunch, Lily napped. Claire found herself with time to explore. The mansion was enormous, room after room decorated with expensive art and furniture that looked museum quality. But there was something cold about it all. Beautiful, but untouchable. Like a showroom rather than a home. She was studying a painting in the main hallway when Gabriel appeared beside her. 16th century, he said quietly. Acquired from a private collector in Florence. It's beautiful. Claire didn't know art, but she could appreciate the masterful brushwork. Do you collect paintings? I collect things that appreciate in value. Gabriel's hands were clasped behind his back. His posture formal. Art, property, businesses, assets that remain stable when other things don't. Sounds like a lonely way to live. Something flickered in his expression. Loneliness is a luxury I can't afford. They stood in silence for a moment, studying the painting. Claire was acutely aware of his presence beside her. The expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask something darker underneath. The controlled power that seemed to hum beneath his calm exterior. You're different from her, Gabriel said suddenly. From Natalie? The way you handle Lily. Natalie was gentle, soft. She treated her like something fragile that might break. Gabriel's voice was thoughtful. You treat her like a person. Like someone capable of handling truth. She is capable. She just needs someone to trust her with it. Gabriel turned to look at her directly. Is that what you needed, when you were her age? The question caught Claire off guard. I needed someone to trust me, yes. To believe I could handle difficult things instead of pretending they didn't exist. And did you? Have someone like that? Claire thought of her mother, working 3 jobs and still falling behind on bills, exhausted and overwhelmed, doing her best with limited resources and no support system. My mother tried, but she was drowning in her own problems. Hard to save someone else when you're barely keeping your own head above water. Gabriel nodded slowly. I know that feeling. It was the first personal thing he'd shared. The first crack in his controlled exterior that revealed something human underneath. Is that what this is? Claire gestured to the opulent surroundings. Making sure you never drown again? This is making sure Lily never has to. Gabriel's voice was firm. She'll never want for anything. Never face uncertainty. Never watch the people she loves struggle to survive. But she's already lost the people she loved most. All this wealth couldn't protect her from that. Gabriel's expression hardened. No, it couldn't. But it can protect her from what comes next. Before Claire could ask what he meant, Lily's voice called from upstairs. Nap time was over. The moment of vulnerability disappeared as Gabriel's walls snapped back into place. But as Claire climbed the stairs to find Lily, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just glimpsed something important. Gabriel Donovan wasn't just wealthy and dangerous. He was terrified. terrified of losing control, terrified of failing to protect what mattered most. And somehow, Claire was becoming part of what mattered to him. On the 7th day at the Donovan estate, Claire found Natalie's diary. She hadn't been snooping. Not exactly. Gabriel had given her access to Natalie's old room on the 3rd floor, suggesting she might find closure in seeing where her sister had lived. The room was preserved like a shrine, clothes still hanging in the closet, makeup arranged on the vanity, books stacked on the nightstand waiting for a reader who would never return. Claire opened drawers carefully, respectfully. She found jewelry that could have paid her rent for years, designer clothes with tags she'd seen only in magazines, evidence of a life lived in luxury, so different from Claire's bargain rack existence. The diary was hidden beneath silk scarves in the bottom drawer. Leather-bound, expensive. Claire held it for a long moment before opening it. This felt like violation. But Natalie was gone, and maybe these pages held answers. The first entry was dated 4 years ago. Natalie's handwriting was elegant, looping. Met someone today. Gabriel Donovan. He's dangerous in ways I should run from, but can't. When he looks at me, I feel seen. Actually seen. Not the senator's daughter. Not the trust fund princess. Just me. Claire flipped through pages. Watched her sister fall in love through carefully written words. But then, 3 years ago, an entry that made Claire's blood freeze. I hired investigators to find Claire. I need to know she's okay. I need her to know I never stopped thinking about her. Father made me promise never to contact her. Said it would destroy the custody agreement. That mother could take me back to court. I was 6 and terrified of losing the only parent who wanted me. But I'm 25 now. Father doesn't control my choices anymore. Claire's hands shook. Natalie had tried. Had actually tried. She kept reading, her vision blurring with tears. The investigators came back empty. Claire disappeared. Changed addresses, maybe changed her name. I don't blame her for hiding from a world that abandoned her. But God, I miss her. I miss the sister I barely remember but feel in my bones. The diary entries continued. Natalie's wedding planning. Her love for Gabriel. Her growing attachment to Lily after Gabriel's brother died. But threaded through it all was grief for a sister she'd lost and couldn't find. The final entry was dated 2 days before her death. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Vincent's been acting strange. Asking too many questions about Gabriel's business dealings, about security protocols. I mentioned it to Gabriel, but he says Vincent's his most trusted advisor. Says I'm imagining things. Maybe I am. Maybe grief makes me paranoid. But I keep thinking about Claire. About lost time. If something happens to me, I hope she knows I tried. I hope she finds this and knows she was loved. Claire's tears fell on the page, smudging ink that would never dry completely. A knock on the door made her jump. Gabriel stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Chen said you were up here. His eyes landed on the diary in Claire's hands. I see you found it. You knew about this? Claire's voice was rough. I gave you access to the room because I thought you should read it. Gabriel moved into the space, his presence filling it. She wrote about you often. Regretted losing you. Tried to find you. She mentioned Vincent. Claire stood, holding the diary like evidence. Said he was acting strange, asking suspicious questions. That was 2 days before she died. Something dark crossed Gabriel's face. Vincent Cross. My chief advisor. I've known him 15 years. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think. I've considered every possibility. Gabriel's voice was tight with controlled fury. Vincent's been investigated thoroughly. His alibi for the day Natalie died is solid. He was in my office during a video conference with international suppliers. 30 people can confirm his location. Then he hired someone. Claire flipped through the diary, finding the entry. Listen to this. Vincent asked about our security schedule, about when guards rotate, about blind spots in the surveillance system. Why would your advisor need that information? Gabriel's jaw clenched. He oversees all security operations. Those questions are part of his job. Or they're reconnaissance for someone planning an assassination. You're reaching. Am I? Claire moved closer. The diary clutched to her chest. My sister is dead. Shot by a professional sniper. She wrote about Vincent acting suspicious days before it happened. That's not reaching. That's evidence. It's speculation based on the paranoid thoughts of a grieving woman. Gabriel's voice rose slightly, the first time Claire had heard him lose control. Natalie was struggling after my brother died. She saw threats everywhere, imagined conspiracies. The therapist said it was trauma response. Or she saw the truth and no one believed her. The words hung between them like a thrown knife. Gabriel stared at Claire with something between anger and pain. I loved her, he said quietly. If Vincent had been a threat, I would have seen it. I would have protected her. But you didn't. The truth was cruel. Claire watched it hit him, watched his carefully controlled exterior crack just slightly, his hands clenched into fists. His breathing grew shallow. Get out, Gabriel said. Gabriel, get out of this room. Now. Claire left, the diary still in her hands. She retreated to her own room and spent an hour reading every entry, looking for more clues. Natalie mentioned Vincent 7 times. Each reference was subtle, small observations about changed behavior. Questions asked. Places he appeared unexpectedly. Alone, they meant nothing. Together, they painted a picture of someone who was paying too close attention. That evening, Claire found Vincent in Gabriel's study. She'd been looking for Gabriel to apologize for pushing too hard. Instead, she found his advisor reviewing security footage on a laptop. Vincent looked up as she entered. He was in his early 40s, silver hair impeccably styled, expensive suit that screamed old money. His smile was pleasant, professional. Miss Whitmore, can I help you with something? I was looking for Gabriel. He's conducting business in the East Wing. Shouldn't be disturbed. Vincent's eyes studied her with barely concealed curiosity. You've been here a week now. Settling in? As much as one can settle in a fortress. Vincent's smile widened. Gabriel takes security seriously, especially after what happened to Natalie. I'm sure you understand. Something in his tone made Claire's skin prickle. The way he said Natalie's name. Too familiar. Too knowing. Were you close with my sister? Claire asked carefully. We were friendly. I coordinated much of her daily security detail. Vincent closed the laptop. She was a lovely woman. Kind. Too trusting, perhaps. Too trusting? She believed the best in people. Even when evidence suggested otherwise. Vincent stood, moving around the desk with casual grace. It's admirable but dangerous in our world. What world is that? The world Gabriel built. The world you've now entered. Vincent's eyes were cool, assessing. You look so much like her. It's almost disturbing. Claire felt trapped between the desk and the door. Vincent wasn't threatening her overtly, but something felt wrong. The way he stood. The calculation in his gaze. I should go find Gabriel, Claire said, moving toward the exit. Of course. Vincent didn't stop her. Oh, Miss Whitmore? A word of advice. Be careful what histories you dig up. Sometimes the past contains truths better left buried. Claire's heart hammered as she left the study. That was a threat. Veiled but unmistakable. She needed to tell Gabriel. Needed to make him see what she saw. But when she found him in the East Wing, he was on the phone speaking rapid Italian. His expression was dark, dangerous. When he saw Claire, he held up one finger. Wait, the call lasted 10 minutes. When he finally ended it, Gabriel's face was carved from stone. We have a problem, he said. Someone leaked details about a shipment. Cost me $3 million and the trust of overseas partners. Gabriel, I need to talk to you about Vincent. Not now. His voice was sharp. I'm dealing with a crisis that could destroy years of careful negotiation. Whatever you think you've discovered about Vincent can wait. It can't wait. He threatened me. That got Gabriel's attention. His eyes sharpened, focusing entirely on her. What did he say? Claire repeated Vincent's words. Watched Gabriel process them. That's not a threat. That's a warning to respect boundaries. Gabriel rubbed his face, exhaustion showing through. Vincent knows you've been reading Natalie's diary. Everyone knows. He's trying to protect me from having old wounds reopened. Or he's trying to protect himself. Enough. Gabriel's voice cut through her argument. I have actual problems to handle. Vincent's loyalty has been proven 100 times over. Your sister's diary entries are grief and paranoia, not evidence. Drop this before you damage relationships I can't afford to lose. The dismissal stung. Claire opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Gabriel was closed off, defensive. Pushing now would only make him more resistant. Fine, she said. I'll drop it. But she wouldn't. Not really. That night, after Lily was asleep and the household had gone quiet, Claire slipped out of her room. She'd watched Vincent's routines for days. He stayed late in his office on the second floor, reviewing reports and making calls until past midnight. Tonight, he'd left at 11:30. She'd heard his car leave through the front gates. His office door was locked. But Claire had spent her childhood picking cheap apartment locks with bobby pins. Expensive locks weren't that different, just required more patience. The door opened with a soft click. Vincent's office was immaculate, everything organized with military precision. Files labeled and alphabetized, technology secured in locked drawers. But Claire had learned from Natalie's diary. Vincent was careful, but everyone made mistakes. She searched systematically, photographing anything suspicious with her phone. Financial records, encrypted communications, a burner phone hidden in a false bottom drawer. Then she found it. A file marked N. Whitmore Security Assessment. Inside were photos of Natalie. Not family photos, surveillance photos. Natalie entering her favorite coffee shop. Natalie in the garden. Natalie at the exact location where she was killed, with timestamps and trajectory notes. Claire's hands shook as she photographed every page. This was it. This was proof. She was replacing the file when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy. Deliberate. Vincent's voice drifted through the door. Yes, I'm heading back now. Forgot some documents. Claire's blood turned to ice. She was trapped. The office had one door, one exit, and Vincent was about to walk through it. She looked around frantically. A window. Large enough to climb through if she wasn't 3 stories above a stone patio. The doorknob turned. Claire made a choice. She grabbed the file and threw herself behind Vincent's desk, pressing herself into the knee space beneath it. It was a terrible hiding spot. If he sat down, he'd see her immediately. The door opened. Vincent's expensive shoes clicked against hardwood as he entered. Claire held her breath, the file clutched against her chest. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain he could hear it. Vincent moved to the filing cabinet, opened a drawer, extracted something. Then his phone rang. Vincent Cross, he answered. A pause. Yes, I secured it. The proof has been eliminated. Another pause. Donovan suspects nothing. He's too busy grieving to see what's directly in front of him. Claire's stomach dropped. The twin was an unexpected complication, Vincent continued. But she'll be dealt with. Same as Natalie. Sometimes twins need to share the same fate. Claire's entire body went cold. She pressed herself tighter against the desk, not daring to breathe as Vincent continued his phone conversation. Yes, the twin is becoming a problem, Vincent said, his voice casual, discussing her death like a business transaction. She's been asking questions, reading Natalie's diary. It's only a matter of time before she pieces things together. A pause. Claire's mind raced. She had the file clutched against her chest. Evidence of Vincent's surveillance. Photos that proved premeditation. But trapped in this office, that evidence meant nothing if she couldn't get it to Gabriel. Donovan is blind where family is concerned, Vincent continued. He sees what he wants to see. The grieving fiancé can't imagine his trusted advisor orchestrated the hit. By the time he figures it out, if he ever does, Claire Whitmore will be another tragic accident. Perhaps she'll fall from a balcony. Or her brakes will fail. These old estates have so many dangerous possibilities. Claire's hand moved slowly to her pocket, pulling out her phone. She switched it to silent, opened the recording app, and started recording. If she died tonight, at least there would be evidence. The child isn't a factor, Vincent said in response to something. Lily's too young to understand what she's seen. And even if she could talk about it, who would believe a traumatized 5-year-old over me? Lily had seen something. Claire's mind clicked through possibilities. Had the little girl witnessed part of Natalie's murder? Was that why she'd gone silent? I'll handle Claire tonight, Vincent concluded. Make it look like she tried to run, panicked, fell down the stairs, breaking her neck. Tragic but believable. Gabriel will blame himself for bringing her here. Perfect symmetry. The call ended. Claire heard Vincent moving toward the door. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. He was leaving. Just a few more seconds. Vincent's footsteps stopped. Then they turned back. Claire realized with sickening clarity that she'd left the filing cabinet drawer slightly open, the one containing Natalie's surveillance file. A detail Vincent would notice immediately, because he was meticulous about details. She heard him walk to the cabinet, heard the drawer open fully, heard his sharp intake of breath as he realized the file was missing. Damn it, Vincent muttered. Claire's options narrowed to one. She couldn't hide, couldn't talk her way out. She had seconds before he searched the room and found her. She exploded from beneath the desk, file in one hand, phone in the other. Vincent spun toward her, surprise flickering across his composed features before morphing into cold calculation. Miss Whitmore, I didn't realize you were interested in late-night research. His voice was pleasant, controlled. That file is confidential. I'm going to need you to return it. You killed my sister. Claire's voice shook but held. These photos prove you were tracking her movements, planning her assassination. Those photos prove I was doing my job. Protecting her from threats Gabriel was too blinded by love to see. Vincent moved slowly toward her, hands raised in a calming gesture. Natalie was paranoid, unstable. She imagined enemies everywhere. I documented her movements to ensure her safety. You documented her patterns to find the perfect moment to kill her. Prove it. Vincent's smile was sharp. Everything in that file can be explained as legitimate security protocol. My phone records will show I was here, in this estate, when she died. 30 people can confirm my location. You hired someone. You gave them the information they needed to take the shot. Again, prove it. Vincent was 5 feet away now, close enough to lunge. You have suspicions, speculation, nothing concrete. Nothing Gabriel will believe over 15 years of loyalty. Claire backed toward the door, phone still recording in her pocket. He'll listen when I play him your phone conversation. You just confessed to planning my murder. Vincent's expression didn't change. You recorded me? How enterprising. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Unfortunately, electronic signals in this office are scrambled. Security measure. Any recording you made is corrupted static. You'll find your phone's memory quite empty. Claire's stomach dropped. She pulled out her phone. The recording app showed nothing. 0 seconds. 0 file. Vincent had planned for everything. Now, Vincent said pleasantly, let's discuss this situation like reasonable adults. You're going to give me that file and your phone. Then we're going to have a tragic accident that leaves you unable to spread these dangerous theories. Claire threw the file at his face and ran. She hit the hallway at full sprint, Vincent's footsteps pounding behind her. The mansion was dark, most staff asleep. Security focused on exterior threats, not internal ones. Help! Claire screamed. Somebody help me! Her voice echoed through empty corridors. Vincent was faster, closing the distance. Claire made a split-second decision and changed direction, heading toward the east wing. Toward Gabriel's private quarters. She burst through a door into what looked like a home office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Massive desk. Leather furniture. And Gabriel, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey, looking up in shock as Claire tumbled into his sanctuary. He killed her, Claire gasped. Vincent killed Natalie. Gabriel's expression shifted from surprise to anger. What are you talking about? Vincent appeared in the doorway, breathing hard but composed. His hand moved inside his jacket. Claire saw the gun before Gabriel did. Sir, I found Miss Whitmore breaking into my office, Vincent said smoothly. She's having some kind of breakdown, attacking me with wild accusations. She's right here, Gabriel said slowly, his eyes moving between them. What accusations? That I murdered Natalie. Vincent's laugh was perfect, genuinely amused. She's been reading that diary obsessively. Let grief and paranoia poison her judgment. just like Natalie did before she died. I have proof. Claire moved behind Gabriel's desk, putting furniture between herself and Vincent. Photos, surveillance. He tracked Natalie's every move, documented patterns, gave information to a hitman. I documented security protocols, Vincent countered, as I was hired to do. Miss Whitmore has taken legitimate security measures and twisted them into a conspiracy theory because she can't accept that her sister's death was random violence. Gabriel looked at Claire. Really looked. She saw the moment his certainty wavered, saw doubt creep into his expression. Claire, Gabriel said carefully, Vincent has been with me for 15 years. He saved my life, protected my family. Why would he kill Natalie? I don't know why, Claire admitted. But I know he did. He called someone tonight, said I needed to be dealt with like Natalie was. Said he'd make it look like an accident. You heard this conversation? Gabriel's voice was neutral, controlled. I recorded it, but he has a signal scrambler in his office. The recording was destroyed. Vincent shook his head sadly. Sir, with respect, Miss Whitmore is clearly unwell. The stress of losing her sister, the isolation here, the resemblance to Natalie, it's broken something in her mind. I'm not crazy, Claire said desperately. Gabriel, please. He has a gun. Why would he draw a weapon on an unarmed woman having a breakdown unless he's afraid of what I know? Gabriel's eyes dropped to Vincent's hand, still inside his jacket. Vincent, show me your hands. Sir, show me your hands. Vincent pulled his hand out slowly. No gun. Just his phone. Claire felt her credibility shatter like dropped glass. I was calling security to help subdue her, Vincent explained. She's dangerous to herself and others in this state. Claire's mind raced. The file. She'd dropped it when Vincent chased her. Where? The file, Claire said. Natalie's surveillance file. It's in the hallway. Photos of her. Time stamped at the location where she died. Gabriel moved toward the door. Vincent shifted slightly, blocking his path. Sir, those are classified security documents. Examining them without proper context will only... Move. Gabriel's voice dropped to something lethal. Now. Vincent stepped aside. Gabriel walked into the hallway. Found the file where Claire had dropped it. Opened it under the corridor lights. Claire watched his face change. Saw the color drain. Saw his hands start to shake as he flipped through page after page of surveillance photos. His fiancée. Tracked. Documented. Catalogued like prey. When Gabriel looked up, his eyes had gone cold. Empty. The kind of cold that came before someone did something terrible. These are dated 2 weeks before she died. Gabriel said quietly. You told me she was safe, that all security measures were working. They were, Vincent said quickly. Those photos prove I was monitoring potential threats to... You photographed her coffee routine, her jogging route, the exact corner where she was shot. Gabriel's voice was steady, but his hands crushed the file edges. You documented blind spots in that location, wrote notes about optimal shooting angles. Vincent's composure finally cracked. You don't understand the full picture. This was necessary. Necessary? Gabriel moved with sudden violence, crossing the space and slamming Vincent against the wall. She was innocent. She was going to be my wife. And you killed her? Your brother killed my son. Vincent roared. The truth exploded out of him like poison he'd been holding back for years. 8 years ago, hit and run. Your brother was drunk, driving your car, and he killed my boy. 6 years old. You covered it up. Paid off witnesses. Made it disappear like my son's life meant nothing. Gabriel's face went white. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. Vincent's eyes blazed with rage and grief. Your family destroys everything it touches, takes what it wants. My son was collateral damage in your brother's carelessness. So I took what mattered to you. Natalie, the woman you loved, showed you what loss feels like. Claire watched Gabriel process this. Saw him realize the magnitude of his family's sins, of secrets that had rotted into tragedy. So you killed an innocent woman for revenge, Gabriel said. She wasn't innocent. She was yours. That made her guilty by association. And now, Claire, Loose end. Vincent's hand moved fast, pulling a second gun from an ankle holster. He pointed it at Claire. She figured it out. Can't let her live. Gabriel stepped between them. You'll have to go through me. Don't tempt me. Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. You both die tonight. Murder-suicide. Grieving boss kills the twin who reminded him too much of what he'd lost, then turns the gun on himself. Tragic. Perfect. The Donovan empire crumbles without an heir. Lily, Gabriel said. The child is mine. My leverage. My insurance policy. I've been planning this for years. A gunshot cracked through the mansion. Claire screamed. Gabriel staggered, but it was Vincent who dropped, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. Franco stood in the doorway, his service weapon still raised. Boss, I heard shouting. Are you hurt? Gabriel looked down at himself, checking for wounds he didn't have. I'm fine. Claire? I'm okay. Claire's voice was shaking. Lily? Sleeping, Franco said. I secured her room when I heard the commotion. 6 months later, spring arrived in Chicago with tentative warmth and the kind of sunshine that made winter feel like a distant nightmare. Claire stood in the kitchen of the Donovan estate, making pancakes with chocolate chips while Lily sat at the counter chattering about her upcoming first day of real school. And Mrs. Chen says I need to pack a lunch, but I want to buy lunch because Molly from my tutoring class says the cafeteria has chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs. Lily swung her legs. Mr. Whiskers propped beside her. Can I buy lunch sometimes? Please? That sounds like a question for your uncle. Claire flipped a pancake, catching it perfectly. The kitchen staff had stopped hovering months ago, accepting that Claire preferred making breakfast herself. But I think dinosaur nuggets sound educational. You're learning about prehistoric creatures through food. Lily giggled. That's not how education works. Says who? Gabriel entered through the side door, dressed for a morning run in athletic clothes that proved wealthy businessmen could also be terrifyingly fit. Sweat dampened his dark hair, and he grabbed a water bottle from the refrigerator with the ease of someone who'd stopped treating his own kitchen like foreign territory. Uncle Gabriel! Lily bounced in her seat. Can I buy lunch at school? Claire says dinosaur nuggets are educational. Gabriel's lips twitched, almost a smile. Did she now? Absolutely. Claire slid pancakes onto plates. Science and nutrition combined. Revolutionary concept. Lily can buy lunch twice a week, Gabriel decided, kissing the top of his niece's head. The other days we pack something healthy, compromise. Lily cheered. Gabriel met Claire's eyes over her head, and something warm passed between them. Not quite romance. Not yet, but understanding. Partnership. The foundation of something that might become more when grief loosened its grip. The past 6 months had been transformation disguised as healing. Gabriel had slowly dismantled the illegal portions of his business empire, transitioning to legitimate shipping and real estate investments. It cost him power and respect in certain circles, but he seemed lighter for it. Less controlled. More human. Claire had used half of the $100,000 Gabriel insisted she keep to pay off debts and establish a savings account that let her breathe without panic. The other half went toward a trust fund for Lily. Insurance against futures no one could predict. She'd also enrolled in night classes at a community college. Criminal justice. Turned out growing up struggling and getting entangled in a murder investigation gave you perspective on systems that failed people. She wanted to fix them, or at least understand them well enough to help others navigate. After breakfast, Gabriel showered and changed into one of his perfectly tailored suits. He had meetings downtown. Legitimate business that didn't require armed guards, though Franco still drove him everywhere out of habit and affection. I'll be back by 4, Gabriel said, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. Lily has her therapy appointment at 3, right? We'll meet you at Dr. Montgomery's office. Claire helped Lily into her jacket. The little girl was doing remarkably well. Still had nightmares sometimes. Still asked questions about Natalie that had no good answers. But she laughed more, played more, spoke more. The selective mutism had broken entirely 2 months ago when Lily had finally felt safe enough to talk about what she'd seen the day Natalie died. She'd been hiding in the garden, playing with Mr. Whiskers, when she'd heard Vincent talking on his phone, describing Natalie's schedule. confirming the time and location. Lily hadn't understood what it meant then. Her 5-year-old brain couldn't process that the nice man who brought her candy was planning murder. But she'd known something was wrong. Had gone silent because speaking felt dangerous. Gabriel had listened to her confession with tears streaming down his face. Had held his niece and promised her that staying quiet had been smart. That she'd done nothing wrong. That the adults had failed to protect her, not the other way around. Now Lily was in therapy twice a week, processing trauma with a specialist who understood childhood grief. She was healing. Slowly. Imperfectly. But genuinely. Gabriel kissed Claire's cheek before leaving. A gesture that had become habit over the months. Casual affection between people learning to trust again. Be safe, Claire said automatically. Always am. Gabriel's smile was easier now. Less controlled. Besides, Franco threatened to quit if I do anything reckless. Apparently I'm too much trouble. After he left, Claire and Lily spent the morning in the library. Reading. Drawing. Existing in comfortable silence punctuated by Lily's observations about everything from cloud shapes to the injustice of bedtimes. At noon, Mrs. Chen brought lunch. She'd softened considerably toward Claire over the months, recognizing that the young woman wasn't trying to replace Natalie, but rather honor her memory by caring for the people she'd loved. Miss Whitmore, this arrived for you. Mrs. Chen handed Claire an envelope. Heavy cream paper. Expensive. Claire's heart skipped. The last time she'd received an envelope like this, it had been a funeral announcement that changed her life. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten in elegant script she didn't recognize. Dear Claire, I am Sarah Morrison, the lawyer who handled your sister's estate. Natalie left instructions that if anything happened to her, certain items should be given to you. I apologize for the delay in executing this part of her will. Legal complications required time to resolve. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. There is something Natalie wanted you to have. Claire read the letter 3 times. Her hands shook slightly. What is it? Lily asked, looking up from her coloring book. Something from Natalie. Claire's throat tightened. Something she wanted me to have. They went to the lawyer's office that afternoon, with Franco driving and providing security that probably wasn't necessary, but made everyone feel better. Sarah Morrison was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, and the bearing of someone who'd spent decades keeping other people's secrets. Thank you for coming, Miss Whitmore. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Natalie came to me 3 years ago and established a secondary will. One that would only be activated if she died under suspicious circumstances. She was very specific about that detail. Claire's pulse quickened. What kind of items did she leave? Sarah pulled out a wooden box, polished and beautiful. She set it on the desk between them. Letters, photographs, and something else. Natalie recorded a video message. For you. She wanted you to have it if anything happened to her. Sarah pushed the box forward. Everything is here, along with a flash drive containing the video. Watch it when you're ready. There's no rush. Claire accepted the box with trembling hands. It was heavier than expected, full of a sister's last words. That evening, after Lily was asleep and Gabriel was in his study reviewing contracts, Claire sat in her room with the box on her lap. She'd looked through the contents. Letters Natalie had written, but never sent. Photographs from their childhood that their father must have given her. A copy of that Halloween picture they'd both kept. But it was the flash drive Claire couldn't quite bring herself to use. A knock on her door. Gabriel entered at her invitation, still dressed, but with his tie removed and top button undone. He looked tired. Good tired. The kind that came from honest work instead of dangerous dealings. Mrs. Chen said you went to a lawyer today. He sat in the chair beside her reading nook. Everything all right? Natalie left me something. Letters, photos, a video message. Claire held up the flash drive. I'm not sure I'm ready to watch it. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. Would you like company? Or would you rather be alone? The question was genuine. No pressure either way. That was what she appreciated about Gabriel. He'd learned to let people make their own choices. Company, Claire decided. Please. She set up her laptop, inserted the drive. The video file opened with Natalie's face filling the screen. She looked so much like Claire that it felt like watching a reflection, but softer, more polished, wearing the life she'd been given instead of the one she'd fought for. "Hi, Claire." Natalie's voice was gentle, sad. "If you're watching this, something terrible has happened to me. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry for a lot of things, actually. Sorry I never found you. Sorry I let Father convince me that staying away was protecting you. Sorry I was too afraid to break the rules until it was too late." Tears streamed down Claire's face. Beside her, Gabriel's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "I want you to know that I looked for you," Natalie continued. 3 years ago. Hired investigators. They couldn't find you, and I was devastated. But I also understood. You built a life away from our family's mess. Smart choice, honestly. I should have done the same. Natalie's image on screen wiped away tears. "I'm leaving you money. A lot of it. The lawyer will explain the details. But more than that, I'm leaving you Gabriel and Lily. I know that's presumptuous. You don't owe them anything. But if you're willing, they need someone who understands loss, who survived it. Someone strong enough to help them heal." Claire's chest ached. She knew. She whispered. "I love Gabriel," Natalie said on screen. "Love him so much it terrifies me. And Lily is the daughter I never got to have. They're my family. The good kind. The kind you choose instead of inherit. If I'm gone, please take care of them. Not because you have to. Because you're the only person I trust to love them properly." Natalie leaned closer to the camera. "Also, little sister, you were always braver than me. Even at 6 years old, watching you stand at that window as Father drove me away, I was crying. You were fierce, angry, already fighting. I knew then that you'd survive anything. Turns out I was right. So thank you. For being strong enough for both of us. I love you. Always did. Always will." The video ended. Claire and Gabriel sat in silence, processing Natalie's final message, her blessing, her hope that the people she loved would find each other in her absence. "She knew you'd come," Gabriel said finally. Somehow she knew, or she hoped. Claire closed the laptop carefully. "Hope is powerful." Gabriel turned toward her, his honey-colored eyes serious. "I need to tell you something. These past 6 months, having you here, watching you with Lily, building something that resembles a family, I started feeling..." He stopped, searching for words. "Natalie was my future, the plan I'd made. But you, Claire, you're something I didn't plan for. Something real instead of designed." Claire's heart hammered. "Gabriel, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "Just telling you the truth. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like to see where this goes. But there's no rush, no pressure. We have time." They did have time. For the first time in both their lives, time wasn't running out. They could heal, could learn each other slowly, could build something that wasn't born from tragedy, but grew alongside recovery. "I'd like that too," Claire admitted. "Eventually. When it feels right instead of necessary." Gabriel smiled. Really smiled. "Eventually works for me." The next morning, Claire and Lily visited Natalie's grave. It had become a Sunday tradition. Bringing flowers, telling Natalie about their week, letting Lily maintain connection with the woman who'd loved her. "Tia Nat, I start school tomorrow," Lily said, arranging daisies in the memorial vase. "Claire says I'll make lots of friends. Uncle Gabriel says if anyone's mean, I should tell teachers immediately and also punch them in the nose." "He did not say that," Claire corrected. "He did," Lily insisted. "He whispered it when you weren't listening." Claire made a mental note to have another conversation with Gabriel about appropriate conflict resolution advice for kindergartners. After Lily ran off to explore the cemetery gardens under Franco's watchful eye, Claire knelt by the headstone. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the letters, the video, for loving them enough to trust me with them. I'll take care of your family, Natalie. I promise." A breeze stirred through the cemetery, rustling leaves and carrying the scent of spring flowers. Claire chose to interpret it as acknowledgement. Her sister, wherever she was, knew, understood, approved. Walking back through the cemetery gates, Lily grabbed Claire's hand. Will Tia Nat be sad that Uncle Gabriel likes you now? Kids. Terrifyingly observant. I think, Claire said carefully, Tia Nat wants Uncle Gabriel to be happy. She wants all of us to be happy. Even if happy looks different than she planned. Okay. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. I'm happy you stayed. You make good pancakes and you don't treat me like I'm broken. You're not broken, sweetheart. You're healing. There's a difference. They drove back to the estate, where Gabriel was waiting with coffee and the Sunday paper, where Mrs. Chen had prepared lunch, where a life built from tragedy's ashes continued to grow into something beautiful. Claire had come to Chicago for a funeral, had found instead a family, had discovered that sometimes the most unlikely stories were the only ones possible. Natalie was gone. That truth would always ache. But she'd left behind love, connection. A sister who'd learned that family wasn't just blood. It was choice. It was people who stayed when leaving would be easier. It was the life you built after everything fell apart. Sometimes the families we build are stronger than the ones we inherit. Sometimes loss opens doors to connections we never imagined possible. Claire walked into a cathedral expecting endings. Instead, she found beginnings. A sister's love that transcended death. A man learning to trust again. A child discovering her voice. And herself, finally belonging somewhere. If this story of unexpected family and second chances touched your heart, there are more stories like this waiting for you. Stories of people who found hope in impossible places, who chose love over fear, who proved that sometimes the most broken pieces create the most beautiful mosaics. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of story lovers. Leave a like if Claire and Gabriel's journey moved you, and drop a comment telling us which moment hit you hardest. Was it Lily's first words? Claire finding Natalie's diary? Or that final video message that changed everything? Your engagement helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. People searching for hope. For proof that families can be rebuilt. That grief doesn't have to be the end of the story. Until next time, remember that the best families aren't always the ones we're born into. Sometimes they're the ones brave enough to choose us back.